Is there such thing as overcoaching during games? Yeah, I mean, we're all guilty of it, right? And sometimes we get in the moment, we get emotional. Remember that your players are a reflection of you as a coach. If you're loud, if you're screaming and yelling, if you're always talking poorly about the referees, you're going to notice your players are going to start complaining about the referees. Even 1% of effort going to the referees is not 100%. And we want our players to be 100% focused on the game. And so try the best that you can, especially during games, to just kind of watch and see what you can come up with. And like Ryan said, take the players off to the side and talk to them if they're not doing what you need them to do, instead of just yelling. I saw this shirt the other day, absolutely loved it. Every decision I make has a direct impact on my entire team. This is really for the kids too, especially when they get older. But everything that we do as coaches does make an impact on the team. And again, it's not about winning and losing, but the impact that we make as helping these kids to be future leaders, to be future soccer players, to be future dads or moms or just good people in the world. Practices. We go with play, practice, play. That's kind of been the goal for the last couple of years from the town, from the state, from the nation. Are we comfortable with play, practice, play here by now? So just really quickly, again, the best way to break down a practice is to break it down into 3 facets. Players show up, they're immediately playing games. This is why getting to practice a little bit early is really important. You set up fields. If you don't have little mini goals, you can set up 2 cones for a goal. And you just have them play 3 versus 3, 4 versus 4, even 4 versus 3. If you need 2 or 3 fields, you can do that to make sure everyone's playing when they get off and get dropped off. So if you notice the fields here, there's a little bit of a gap so coach can kind of walk in between and players get an opportunity to play to small goals, even to small cones. And this really gives them an opportunity to just kind of get out of the car and get to what they want to do, which is play. They don't want to sit in lines of 18 kids and touch a ball, 3-4 times every 10 minutes. They want to play. And this is an awesome, awesome idea to start the day with these games. I started with my team at U9. You see players running, sprinting out of the car because they see their teams already playing. 5-10 minutes before practice starts, I've got kids already there trying to play in their game. There's also the practice portion, which we're going to get to in a moment, but that's the middle part. And then at the end is play 2 or P2. What that is going to be is our basically your scrimmage at the end of the game. That's taking your concepts and putting them into a game.
Most common question is, when do we teach the skills? Teach them while you're doing your practice phase, so they can adapt that skill to whatever it is you're trying to teach. Opening their hips to the field, heels on the sideline, a technical move that you want them to get out of space, teach them then. But if you want to teach individual technical skills, do it in between your initial play phase and your practice phase. Take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, do a dribble box, do some technical moves, do a relay race. There's a lot of fun for the kids. Set up a bunch of cones, have them dribble through, tag their partner. Even just little running through that without a ball helps too.
Just some guidelines for practice, but keeping things as close to game-like as possible. I mean, there's so many great things out there. If you look online that are drills that involve 2 soccer balls or 16 goals and all that. Why make it so complex? And realistically, when will they ever have 2 soccer balls in a game, right? Try to keep it as game-like as possible. Try to eliminate those lines where you've got 7 or 8 kids waiting in line. Realistically, there's going to be times where they're waiting their turn. If there's a line of 3-4 people, max is fine, as long as you can kind of see, are they getting in every 20 seconds? Because if they're waiting longer than 20 seconds, not only is it not realistic, but their focus is now gone. They're jumping on the player in front of them, and now you're focusing more on problems, interpersonal problems, than you are on like working on skills. Keeping things basic. We're youth soccer coaches. We don't need to go in there and be the next best amazing coach. Go out there and say, okay, what's my goal? Why am I here? What are we trying to do? We're trying to score goals. Okay, let's put some players down. Let's put some defenders down. Let's try to give them opportunities to score goals. Coaching points. we're all guilty of this too, where we end up saying, okay, everyone, listen, here's what we need to do. And then 5 minutes later, you're like, oh, yeah, we got to start playing. Best coaching points can be at natural breaks. When the ball's being played, the ball goes out of bounds. And as they're running to get the ball, you may want to shout your 8 or 10 seconds. Okay, don't forget, you need to make sure to switch the field or stay wide. And then when they come back in, you haven't wasted any of their playing time by talking. Ask the players questions. This was one of the big things we learned in the D license, was asking questions. Instead of just telling the players what to do, ask them what you think they should do in certain situations. And breaking down the aspects of the game, offensive side, defensive side, give them options. Show them, well, what would you do if you went here? Why would this be a good idea? Why might this not be a good idea? And let them kind of think through their ideas as to what should work and what might not work. There's many arguments for this too about stopping players in the middle of drills, like freeze. Some coaches are really against that. I think it has its place because it gets players to kind of stop in the moment, especially at a younger age. And if you say freeze, where are you supposed to be? I'm a left wing. Why are you in the middle of the field? Where should you be? Oh, okay. My assistant coach says it perfectly. He always says, what position are you playing? I'm playing defense. Prove it. And there is not a lot of time to just have players work on skill-based drills, right? We could do that all practice, but then it's not really realistic. But where do you fit in those times where it's like, look, I just need 5 minutes for my players to really work on their touch. So after the play phase, right, when they get in, they're playing the little 3v3 games, maybe for 5 minutes before you get into the meat of the drill, just be like, all right, guys, everyone have a ball, everyone get in the middle, let's work on some touch. Our kids with the technology age, they all know these drills. If you say the names, you don't need to be good at this. You just need to know some of the names or have them show you. Hey, what's your favorite drill? L turn. Show me an L turn. Great, everyone, let's work on L turns. I like the Maradona. You might be like, what is he talking? All right, show me the Maradona. And they show you, okay, great, everyone, 30 seconds. Let's work on Maradona moves. And it's only a 1.5-minute video, but we just have them working on individual dribbling skills, moving with the ball. And we go for like 20 seconds, and then we have a little break, and I tell them something else to do, and they work on a different skill. And I try to get them to work on all parts of their feet.
Just be careful with this stuff depending on what age you're coaching. U9 kids, attention span, probably about 10 seconds. Right? So just make sure you keep it moving, keep it fun, keep it entertaining. Otherwise, they're going to get bored in 2 minutes, and you're going to completely lose them.
What's nice about this too is everyone has a ball. Everyone's working at their skill level. No one's waiting.
This also gives you a good opportunity to talk to the kids individually too. How's your day at school? How's the week going? Did you play any soccer this weekend? Did you watch Liverpool play? It helps extra little time for you to have those little conversations while they're doing something.
Don't forget to change speed.
And so I really try to incorporate these things into my practice, maybe 5 to 10 minutes every other practice. When do you train goalkeepers? Big question. When you're playing the play phase in the beginning, might not be a bad idea if you have an assistant coach, is say, hey, look, while they're playing their 3-on-3 game or while they're doing individual skills, you can run the skills. I'll take the keepers for 5 minutes. And just even if you're working on rolling the ball with their hands, getting them comfortable with using their hands, rolling the ball back. And there's a bunch of little drills here that I have in that website where it's a bunch, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 different drills that you can do with your goalkeepers. And it doesn't need to be perfect, but it's just getting them opportunities to use their hands and practice moving with their feet to stop a ball. All right, so practice plans. You got 20 minutes before practice and you're saying, all right, what am I going to do today? We did talk about these 5 elements in the past, and I like to kind of bring these up all the time. Your practice plan should be organized, game-like, repetitive, challenging, and the coaching should be appropriate for their age level. And if you can do those 5 things, you're going to have a really good practice. Easier said than done, of course, but that's why we have these questions. So this is the one slide that I will always tell you you should have with you every single time you're coming up with a practice plan. What players are you working with? How many you're going to have? How many defenders do you want in the drill? How many what are the defenders playing to? Where are they going to go when they win the ball from the offensive team? Where's the offensive team going? Are they scoring in a big goal? Are they going to little mini goals? What area are we working in? What's the size of the field? And also, are we working on the offensive side, the defensive side, in the middle of the field? And what percentage of the field do you think we need to use?
Rely on the play, practice, play stuff. Because a lot of times for your kids, they're there to have fun and just try and see if they can maybe get better. So for them, sometimes at younger ages, it's tough for them to relate when you're doing 4v4 possession with a plus player and you got 3 different targets that they got to play to, and they're trying to figure out that game. But then how does that translate to what they're trying to do in a 9v9 game, right? So sometimes the basics, even though it doesn't seem like it's working, works a lot better because they can visualize what's going on in practice and then that's going to look like in a game.
All right, so talking about attacking concepts. Let's say you and your team has decided that we can't score many goals. Oh man, we really struggled scoring goals. So you decide, I'm going to start working on some offensive, attacking third type ideas. Meaning, when you get into the box and a little bit beyond the box, how do we score goals?
So this is something I do regularly. And it was in my coaching philosophy, visuals, right? Teaching in multiple different facets. I like to use the freeze a lot. I also like to sometimes, for younger kids or even my high school kids, to be honest, put down cones to break the field into spaces. Because more often than not, just like as we as coaches kind of get caught in the moment, so do the players. They're drifting, and you're like, where are you going? For you to set up cones for them in that middle space, you can kind of help them visually see where they need to be and then get some of your points across. So for an offensive type of drill, what are we going to encourage them to do? How can we get them to do that? What are some of the combinations to break down the outside backs, right? How are we going to create those goals? What options do players with the ball have? Help the players read and play based on how things develop. So just some keywords for, obviously on the offensive side, open the book, heels on the sideline, a 1-2 wall pass, a give and go, as Pete does not like to call it anymore. Here are some of the offensive ideas to help your team. So obviously this would be for 7v7 mostly because there's 2 defenders. If you're doing 9v9 and you have limited access to players, do the same thing. It's the same type of concept.
So red is on offense. There's 4 of them. There's 2 defenders, so it's a 4 versus 2.
Yeah, we have two defenders, right, in a space. Can we draw one out wide? And then what would be the next step of that? Yeah, I mean, we're taking the basics, right? Get the ball wide. Can we try and get low enough to get across into the box? Not overly complicated. I think most of your kids would understand that concept, right? Hey, can we play a ball wide and try and get to the end line and put a ball in the box? Or dribble towards goal, right? I think your teams would probably do that mostly naturally, right? If you have older teams, you can also talk about, again, drawing the defender out. Now you've created a 2-on-1 in the middle of the field. You're creating a numbers advantage. But, if you're coaching 9-year-olds, 8-year-olds, probably don't want to go into that much depth.
And these are also where you can coach those little skills where we mentioned when you play the ball to the striker into the corner there, you can have and talk about the outside midfielders. Okay, guys, the ball is on one side of the field. Where do you think this player with the ball should shoot to? Because many players at the young age are going to go near post. If they miss near post, the ball's out of bounds. If they miss far post, the guy running in far post can score. If they miss far post, it might get deflected off a defender and go in the net. There's a lot more options of scoring if they go to far post. So what I try to teach my players all the time is whenever you're going to goal, go far post, go far post. Players, when you're running in, run to the far post, run to the far post. And it's not so much about drill work there as much as about concept. So go run to far post. And you'll see when a player has a ball, every single time that they're going to goal, if we have players running the far post, we score more often than not on crosses. We're trying to teach them more of that concept.
And again, this is depending on what age you're coaching. Talk about different stuff. This player has tons of space. Tell them to take their space, right? You have space, dribble. Dribble versus pass. So again, more options. If you feel like your team has gotten that under control, give them another option, right? So in this one, defender takes a little more of the space out wide. Can we play the ball back into the middle? Now we've created a numbers advantage in the middle of the field because we drew out the defender. Do the kids need to know that? Nope. But you're giving this player another option, right? They have this option going to goal. And what you'll find in practice too, if you keep doing reps of this, what is this defender more likely to do? Go protect this space like they should. This defender has now learned, crap, he keeps beating me to this space and getting across it on his own because you're not coaching the defense. He's made an adjustment. How are you going to teach this player to now make another adjustment? And you may not do this in one practice. This may be over the course of several practices, an entire season. So again, another option, crossing the ball, right? And this is literally all you're doing, right? You're walking through these steps. When you feel like they feel comfortable with something else, give them another option. Show them something. This is a perfect opportunity for you to use freeze. Play the ball out there. We've done the same thing every single time. How about you play a ball to this player? Look at, he's wide open. How about you cross the ball after one touch instead of taking the ball all the way to the end line? Keep asking them questions. What do they see? They'll come up with answers on their own. Yeah, so again, another option, striker, you're working on the give and goes or the 1-2s, the wall pass, right? Depending on the level of your team, just another option, right? You're just working through these. You're not going to give them all to them on the same practice because they're going to forget all of it. Just keep working on the same thing.
But now, looking on the other side, you may want to do very similar drills, but focus more now on the defensive side, to where you say to the players, all right, offense, we've been working on this for the last couple practices. Why don't you show some combination play? Why don't you try to get the ball in? How can you try to finish? Where should the ball go? And then stop with your offensive side and say, all right, defense, I'm going to be focusing more on you. Where would you stand if you're going to be coaching the defense in a 4 versus 3 game? Yeah, by the goal. Because now you're focusing on talking to the players as they're looking at half field and trying to defend. You're now behind the goal or near the goal, and you're coaching those defenders. When usually coaches are standing at half field looking at the big goal because you're coaching the offense, think about where you're going to stand. It's a small thing, but now you're focusing on talking to the defenders. What should their defensive shape look like? How does it change if the ball goes wide? Where do you think defenders are going to go if the pass goes wide? When we show those earlier balls that went outside of the zones and they played the ball wide to their left midfielder, what do you think the defenders are going to do? Yeah, they're going to go after it. Well, how many are going to go after it? Depends on the age group, right? Youth age, U9, everyone's going after it. Or no one may go after it. So then kind of teaching the players, hey, closest one to the ball should be doing what? Should pressure the ball. Then what should the other players do? And then you can kind of work in some of those vocabulary words of pressure the ball, closest one to it, cover the space, player gets in behind to cover that space in behind the player. And how do you make the offense predictable so you know what's coming? Any idea how you would make the offense predictable? If you're two defenders, if Coach Ryan and I are defending, should it be a good idea if we're close together or far away? If we're trying to block the middle of the field? Yeah, we want to be close. So I use close the book, open the book. Ryan uses squeeze the sponge.
And fill the sponge.
And fill the sponge. I just try to use analogies to kind of let the players know if we're closing the book, everybody close the book so the words get close together so we're blocking the middle of the goal. If we have the ball, let's open the book and let's get as wide as possible. And Ryan uses the put your heels on the sidelines so that they're open hips and they're as far away from each other as possible. Pressure cover is a really good vocabulary to start using for your players if you haven't already. Pressuring the ball is so important, and just get those players opportunities to, if you're the closest one to the ball, shut down that space. So defensively, now that we're working on the defensive side, if we take 3 players and we have the blue as the defenders, they're in what shape? Triangle shape, right? And then you have your offensive players. You've got your striker, your outside midfielders, your center mid, and you still have those 3 zones, the left zone, the middle zone, and the right zone, to really give them an opportunity to know where should you be on the field. So look at the triangle that they're holding on to.
Notice how the field space is pretty much exactly the same. You're just focusing on something different.
So pressuring the ball.
Something technical, just keeping the player in front of you, not stabbing at the ball, moving their feet.
And really, if you're saying, wow, this is a lot of concepts, or this is really hard to do. If you really could tell your players, hey, folks, let's try to, the closest person to the ball, let's pressure. Can we try to stay in a triangle? So if you notice, the closest player is now pressuring the ball. They're keeping that triangle shape.
And don't think for a second that I think your U9s are going to have this perfect shape that we just displayed in here either. I know they're not. But again, utilizing the spaces in the fields will give them a visual on, hey, if I'm not out there pressuring the ball, I'm just going to stay in the middle of the field and take away space. And sometimes just those key reminders of words, using pressure all the time, using cover, right? If you identify your center mid and your other defensive back as just cover people, they relate that and they'll build on that later on as they get older.
As you get to the older ages with U11 and U12 and you're playing 9v9, or even when you're 13s and 14s and you're playing 11v11s, adding in another defensive player, so now you're working 3 backs with a center midfielder.
So for 9v9, again, I've added in extra cones as a visual. Who do you think what does the red represent versus the yellow? Center line, right? Who would that affect? Yeah, exactly, right?
Bingo.
We're trying to create spaces. Now we've created a lane for this defender, a lane for this defender, right? What is his space? The center mid. The yellows, right? And you tell the players that individually. Hey, dude, I want you to stay between this yellow cone and this yellow cone, no matter what happens. Okay? If you're playing the center back, you have the yellows, unless a player leaves, and then you're filling this lane. Right? You're breaking down a spatial awareness for them so that they can see what happens. Right? And yep, this player is going to be stranded on their own, but in a game, who else would be out here? Yeah, the outside mid, the wing player, right? So you have a numbers advantage out there as well. So as you start building in, you can hit play. As you start building in other things, they'll start seeing that and feel a little bit more relaxed about not having to step out there. Always encourage them to play the game, not the drill you're doing. But you're teaching the same concepts to both sides. Keep the player in front of you, right? Try and block the space, make them turn the other way, right? Worry about their shape. So when you go to your full play phase, you may leave the cones out there for your full play phase just to keep that visual in there and take them up later in the game.
And as always, if things aren't successful, if the defense is really struggling to win the ball, you can add more defenders. If the defense is winning every single ball, take some defenders away. But just adding and making changes is our job as coaches, is to try to make it a little bit more challenging, but enough so where there is some success shown. If it's too easy or too hard, it's not fun for anybody either. And so this is where we talked about coaching the drills versus coaching the concepts, right? We could kind of sit there and tell you, do this drill, and this is a fun drill, and these are fun drills, and you'll find those on the internet. But realistically, Ryan and I wanted to kind of walk you through concepts. Coaching drills can lead to confusion because you're throwing information at players that aren't really ready to relate one thing to another. And that's why game realistic opportunities are so important. So make sure you're using repetition to kind of give them different concepts and then the ideas. Every single time that you can put them in these opportunities to where they can become in a game-like situation where they have stress, where they have somebody defending them, or they have to defend somebody, and then you're going to make it game-like and realistic, that's what's going to make them better players. Just because they have good foot skills doesn't mean they're going to be a very good team. Formations. Our recommended formations for the 7v7 is to play a 2-3-1. 2 defenders, 3 midfielders, and a striker. So that way you always have a target man up top, and you have some width on the outside, and you're focusing on pressure and cover in the back. When you move to 9v9, we have 3 defenders, 4 midfielders, and 1 striker. That way you have, with the 3 defenders, you can have players moving up and back, and you can have them supporting or even working on overlaps to get up the field if they're a fast enough or quick enough team, or a team that can possess the ball very well.
If you have questions on formations, don't be afraid to ask. These all build on each other. So when you're going from that 2-3-1 and 7v7 to 9v9, sometimes it's easy to like read online, hey, you should play with 3 guys up top because of this, this, and this. Yes, but if you're not planning on doing that when you go to 11v11, you might be hindering your kids because you're doing something completely different. Those 2 formations are very basic, and they create a lot of triangles and diamonds for the players for them to understand, and they're very just realistic in what they will actually play in a game.
Yeah, youth level, I don't switch. We play a 3-4-1 every game. I don't care whether we're up 10 or down 10 or it's a tie game. I'm not really looking to switch because I'm not trying to win games. I'm just trying to develop. At the high school, it's the same thing that I do with Ryan, that Ryan does, is I'm just trying to play with what I have. I tend to go more defensive heavy and play a 4-5-1, 4 defenders, 5 midfielders, and a striker, which tends to go in really well with this because you're always working on that one target man, even at the high school age. But yeah, I would say at the higher level, it really depends on who you have. If you have a maroon and a gold team at your age bracket, it's really a good idea to try to get them to play together. We don't need to say, okay, got to practice every hour together at the same time, and every practice has to be together. But just giving kids opportunities to be together. So when you have that play phase, there are times where, like what I would do with my U10 team last year, is we would have the gold and the maroon team would start the play phase together. So they would show up and they'd play 3v3 with giant fields. There was other times where that little like skill that I was telling you guys or showing you guys where they were just doing dribble boxes, you could have that other gold team or the white team or whatever other age group is there. The maroon team now might not be the maroon team in 3 years. Some of those gold players may come up. Some of the maroon players may drop.
These are great opportunities too to not do something necessarily extremely skill related, like sharks and minnows, stuck in the mud, tag, handball. All those things are team building activities that'll help interact the kids and not necessarily have to worry about who has the best skill, right? It's creating a fun opportunity for them to get together and just do something.
And then bigger field. If you guys are moving to a bigger field in the fall, this is an opportunity to possibly get into the bigger field, especially towards the later end of the year. When we were U10, before we went to U11, in the spring, the last 4 or 5 games I played were away games against an older age group. Or I even asked the U10 teams to say, hey, do you guys have 9v9 fields? Oh yeah, we got some. Can we schedule a game in like mid-June or early June where we can just play 9v9 even though neither team has really played one before? Or if you're a gold coach, ask the maroon coach, hey, do you want to have a couple of scrimmages by the end of the year where if there's fields and Susie has room, can we go play in a 9v9? Or set up a game. Set up a maroon versus gold game on a Saturday towards the end of the year and bring both teams in and break them up. Just say randomly, take the first 10 kids that come, you're on this team. The first 10 kids that come, you're on that team. And have you like a mixed scrimmage. That
was a really important thing. When you go from 9v9 to 11v11, it's almost like a must because the field size is so much bigger that the kids have no idea how to use that space. So even just giving them that idea and playing to get in the spring is awesome.
And quickly, let's talk more about what you should be doing during game days. Make sure you arrive about 25 to 30 minutes early so they can work on dynamic stretching and then working on passing the ball with one another. I would really focus on passing, not so much shooting, but have your coach, either you or the assistant, warm up the goalkeeper. And then about 10 minutes before game time, maybe you can have strikers and midfielders shooting on goal while the defenders are still kind of passing the ball back and forth to each other. A couple minutes before game time, bring everybody in, give your starting lineups, and then work on giving 3 specific goals to set for the half. Make sure you focus on those goals as being things that you practice on during the week. And then for the game, talk to your assistant before the game, split up responsibilities. Who's going to focus on the players on the field? Who's going to be managing the bench? And just make sure while you're sitting with the players, you're asking them questions so that they're actually paying attention to the game and thinking critically about what they're seeing. Halftime talks. Make sure you're not talking more than 3 things. Just keep it basic and talk about the 3 things that maybe you talked about before the game. Hey, how did it work during the first half? Did we do well? What can we improve on for the second half? Don't overload them with too much information. When the game's over, stress that you tell the parents to just say, hey, I liked watching you play. Don't worry about the X's and the O's. They're young kids. Emotions are going to be really high. So just make sure that players are positive, the parents are positive, and you as a coach are positive in your post-game conversation with the players. And for some other slides, you're just using the vocab words that Ryan and I used at the high school. So feel free to look through some of those vocabulary words. They're pretty helpful, and the players are going to be using them if they continue to move on into the high school. So it's worth using those vocabulary words now so they can become comfortable with it when they get older.
But we'd love for you, if you're coaching 7v7, get your 7v7. If you have a 9v9 that you're going to next year, get ahead of it and get to the 9v9 sometime this spring or summer. And thank you all very much for your time.